Okay. Once again, good morning, everybody. In the previous class, we looked into the complete syllabus, what all the things that are involved in the web technology and its application, and what is the importance of learning this particular subject, how it will add to your profile, and how it is such a great skill set. And there is a lot of demand, a lot of job requirement in this particular technology, especially whatever you are learning, that is HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, PHP. All these things are in very demand, and it will be very useful. Let us start with the module one, and as I said, the reference textbook for you is this is the one book, Fundamentals of Web Development by Randy Connolly. It will cover the complete syllabus. Complete syllabus coverage is there, and also there are additional topics that are there, which will be helpful as part of the learning, but it is not part of your syllabus. And it is, if you are really interested, it is good to have a one copy of this. So it will be useful in your career. Suppose if you get into front end development, it will be helpful as a reference book in the future also. If you want to buy this particular book, that would be good. So module one, from that book, we start with the chapter 2 and 3. Chapter 1 is the introduction. Let us not start with directly with the HTML. Let us get some background about the web technology, which is covered in the chapter 1. We will have a better understanding of HTML and all the web related technologies if we have the basic understanding how the web web technology, the application, how it started, what is the history behind it. So we'll start with the chapter 1. Okay, here they cover a brief history about the internet itself, and what different internet protocols, client server model, what is the meaning of client server model, which is it is a core of the any web application. Where is the internet, domain name system, DNS, what is DNS, what is URL, we'll understand, and what is HTTP, and what is a web servers, how they will play a role in developing a web application. Very brief introduction. Once we have the understanding of this, then we will start with the module 1, that is HTML, beginning of the HTML. So internet, so World Wide Web. When we say World Wide Web, we mean that it is a internet, but internet is much larger than that, and World Wide Web is just part of it. So when we talk about the internet, World Wide Web is there. Then other email, online gaming, FTP, file transfer protocols, many other things are involved. So World Wide Web is just a part of the internet. So, simple definition of the communication. Telephone networks provide a good starting place to learn about a modern digital communication. In telephone network of old, calls were routed through operators who physically connected the caller and the receiver. So earlier, if you remember, if you have seen any earlier communication, there used to be a manual operator who will do the switching job. So he will connect the caller to the receiver. So this is the circuit switching. So this establishes a physical connection between the two telephones. That is how they can make a call through a series of physical switches. Some of the weakness of the circuit switching, you must establish a link and maintain a dedicated circuit for the duration of the call. So in the previous slide, you can see here. So it is a physical connection has been established between the caller and the receiver. So we have to maintain this physical connection. That is a disadvantage of a circuit switching. you must establish a link and maintain a dedicated circuit for the duration of the call. Even if there is no communication, but still you have to maintain that physical link. Difficult to have multiple conversations simultaneously. Suppose if you want to have multiple conversation using the same network, it would be very difficult. So that is why it is a waste of the bandwidth. Even if there is nothing to be communicated, still those lines will be dedicated. So next is the beginning of the more research into the networking. That's they started with a research network called as a ARPANET, which was created in 1960. Okay, and this ARPANET, it did not use the circuit switching. Instead, it used the packet switching. Okay, in case of a packet switching, the network does not require a continuous connection. So in earlier circuit switching, we need a dedicated continuous line should be there. In case of a packet switching, we don't need a dedicated connection. Instead, the whatever the message is there, it is split into a smaller packets, and those packets will be routed from the sender to the receiver. Okay, the packets can take different routes to the destination. So the based on the routing, the packets will take a different routes, and they will reach the destination. When they reach the destination, that particular packets are reassembled to frame the message whatever is needs to be communicated. This is the packet switching example. So you can see this is a sender person, and he has this particular message which he wants to pass to the receiver. Okay, this particular message is broken into original message is broken into a different packets. So you can see here roughly 3 lines are broken into 3 packets, and named as AB1, AB2, and AB3. These are the 3 packets, and this is the router. From here, these 3 packets will be routed. You can see one message AB1 got routed like this, and it reaches the destination, and B2 and B3 they got routed here, and B2 got routed in this way and reaches the destination. Okay, and B3 is routed through this router, and it comes here and it gets delivered to the destination. In the destination, it is reassembled to get the message. Whatever the message was sent, that message will be received. That is a packet switching. While packet switching may seem more complicated and inefficient approach than circuit switching, but here it looks like a complicated, but it is actually very convenient, it is very robust, and it is highly efficient. And the same bandwidth can be used for the multiple communication, and we need not have a dedicated line. So if you see in the previous, we do not have any dedicated line between the sender and the receiver. Okay, those messages, these packets will be routed into a different routing paths. So if multiple communication needs to happen, the same network can be used, and routers will route it to the respective receiver. So more robust, it is not reliant on single pathway that may fail, and more efficient use of the network resources. Okay, because we can make a multiple communications using the same bandwidth, the efficiency of such networks is very high. Okay, as I told you, it started with the ARPANET. This ARPANET was funded and it was controlled by the US government, and was exclusively used for the academic and the scientific purposes. So ARPANET, it was totally under government, and it was for the purpose of academics and the scientific researches. And later they wanted to expand this, and it was connected to many campuses. Okay, and it grew to a few hundred by early 1980s. So slowly the ARPANETs, the campuses, okay, they started connecting and it started growing. Now, as ARPANET was growing, they wanted to have a certain protocol because they want to establish certain standards which can be used to further make improvements in the internet. To promote that, they started with the TCP/IP. To promote the growth and unification of the disparate networks, suite of protocols was invented to unify the networks together. So the basic idea of coming up with the TCP/IP. TCP is transmission control protocol, and IP is internet protocol. The reason behind that is as the networks were getting bigger and bigger, they wanted to have a unification of this because there are certain things that were different in these different networks. They wanted to unify all these networks, so that is why they wanted to come up with a standards. In by 1981, new networks built in the US began to adopt TCP/IP. So whatever networks that were built after 1981, they used the TCP/IP common communication model. And older networks, they transitioned over to it. So whatever the ARPANET, which is earlier networks, those were slowly transitioned to TCP/IP model. Tim Berners-Lee. So he is the one who invented the World Wide Web, WWW. The invention of the WWW is usually attributed to the British Tim Berners-Lee, along with the Belgian Robert Cailliau, published a proposal in 1990 for a hypertext system while both were working in CERN in Switzerland. CERN is a European organization which was involved in the nuclear research. They were working there, and they came up with this proposal of World Wide Web. And what were the core features of the proposal was, first thing was a URL to uniquely identify a resource on the World Wide Web. So what is a URL? URL is Uniform Resource Locator. When we have this World Wide Web, every resource will be identified with a unique number that is called as a URL. So even now in the network, how resources are identified is by having a unique URL. Suppose you have a printer in the network, you have a web server in the network, you have a database in the network. Those things are identified by a unique URL. That is how we will be able to reach to that particular web server or that particular mail server or any kind of a resource that we have. Then we will have HTTP protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, to describe how request and response operate. So in World Wide Web, everything work on the basis of the request, sending a request and receiving a response. And the request and responses are sent over the HTTP protocol. And then we have a software program, and this program is called as a web server. Okay, web server software. Web server, when we talk web server is nothing but a software. Okay, and that software will be residing on a particular hardware which has a higher capability. But web server is nothing but it is a software. And what the software will do, web server will do, it can respond to the HTTP request. So HTTP request will come through the network. So it will come from many users that are using the network. Those requests will come to the server, to the program which is called as a web server, and it will respond. So it will respond as a HTML. So this request will come through the HTTP, and the web server will respond, give the responses through the HTTP. HTML to publish the document. So server, when server gives a response, it will give response in terms of a HTML. And this HTML is understood by the browser. Okay, that is another program. A program later called a browser. What is a browser? Browser where you can send a request. First, let us say, what is the meaning of sending a request? Is you want to access, let's say, Gmail. So you will type the URL, whatever the Gmail URL you will type, and you hit enter. The request will be sent to the Gmail server. Okay, through the HTTP protocol. request will be sent to the server. Then server will respond as a HTML page, and maybe it will respond with a page where they will ask you to enter user ID and password. So once you put the gmail.com, it will ask for the user and ID and password. You enter the user ID and password. So what response you get is a HTML page that will be loaded on the browser. A browser is nothing but your program, like Chrome, okay, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Mozilla. All these are the different browsers which will render the whatever the response we get from the web server. So it will be painted on the browser. You type the user ID and password, and you hit the submit button. Again, request will go to the server. This time you are requesting to log in to your account. Then from this web server, it will authenticate your user ID and password. If it is correct, what it will do, it will respond with a page, maybe your inbox directly. It will show the inbox. It will respond with that inbox, and this response will come as a HTML, and the browser understands that HTML, and it renders that page, and you will see your inbox, and you can do the whatever operations you want to do on that particular page. So a program later called as a browser to make HTTP requests from URLs, and that can display the HTML it receives. So this is the core feature of any web application. W3C, so W3C is nothing but a World Wide Web Consortium. Again, this was founded by Berners-Lee in 1994. Worldwide Consortium. Basically, it was created to create the international standards which every organization can use when they are creating the technologies related to the web. So that is the main intention of this particular W3C. This growth was very much facilitated by the decision of CERN to not patent the work and ideas done by its employees. So you remember Berners-Lee, he was an employee of the CERN, and he was working on this particular World Wide Web. Whatever the work he was done, it was not patented by the CERN. Okay, that is the reason why we have all the internet, the World Wide Web is free, right? Anybody can access, anybody can put resources. So that is the reason, because CERN did not patent it. Web application compared to desktop application. So I told you in the last class, we just briefly talked about the desktop application. What is a desktop application? Anyone please unmute and answer. What is a desktop application? So we'll see the comparison between the web apps, web applications and the desktop application. So desktop application, what is a desktop application? Which run locally. Okay, so the desktop applications, they are designed to work only on the a particular system. Okay, it could be a laptop, it could be any other computer. So they will not use any resources which are available on the network. It will use the resources that are locally available on that particular laptop. Desktop application was this was the trend when we started developing the application. Normally they used to be desktop application. As World Wide Web, as the internet started improving, okay, lot of improvements happened, lot of advances happened in, then slowly we started moving from desktop application to the web application, because there were tremendous um, uses of having web application over the desktop application. So when we say desktop application, it will run locally on particular computer, and every computer has a different configuration, right? It might have a different operating system, different kinds of RAM sizes, then CPU, different CPU. Having a single desktop application to cater these different kinds of variations was very, very difficult. And on top of that, every now and then we get the patches for the operating system. Whenever there is a patches for the operating system, the desktop application needs to be tested for those patches, right? If there is any problem, we have to fix individually on each of the configurations. The web application, the biggest advantage is like the web application will be residing on the, it will be hosted on the server, and it can be accessed from the client. Client is nothing but the web browser side of the application is got the client. So whenever there is any update, just we can directly put it on the web server and it will be reflected by all the browsers, right? So that is the advantage of having a web application. So we'll see other advantages: accessible from any internet enabled computer. So if you have a web application, you can access it from anywhere, any laptop, any device, mobile device, portable device, any kind of a device, you can access it as long as you are connected to the internet. Usable with a different operating system and browser platforms. So it really doesn't care what kind of a operating system you have, as long as the browser which is available on that operating system is supported by the web application, then it will work fine. So there is no dependency on the individual operating system that is present on the user systems. Easier to roll out program updates, since only need to update software on the server, not on every desktop. As I told you, the complete web application will be hosted on the server. Whatever updates you want to make, it can be done on the server. So none of the desktops are impacted. Centralized storage on the server means fewer concerns about local storage. So all the storage, whatever the storage that is going to happen, whether it is a file or whether it's any kind of other data, everything will be stored centrally, either on the web server, or if web server is connecting to a database, if records are going to the database, it will be centrally stored in the database. Disadvantages of having a web application. First, the disadvantage is requirement to have an active internet connection. So earlier when we started with the web application development, this was a big concern, because that time internet was not as today, right? So there were a lot of issues. Now the internet connection is pretty much available everywhere. So this disadvantage is not to it's not a that big concern in today's world. Security concerned about sensitive private data being transmitted over the internet. So it's a network, so there are provisions to safeguard this private data, and a lot of technological announcements have happened where we can safely transmit the data from one resource to another resource. Concern over the storage, licensing, uses of uploaded data. So these all the consensus are nowadays, it is not that much compared to the earlier stages of web application development. Problem with certain website on certain browsers not looking quite right. If you have seen this, some of the application will not look good on certain web browsers. What they do is, whenever they create any kind of a web application, suppose if you are accessing any web application, for example any banking websites, clearly they will mention what kind of browsers are supported and what versions are supported. So if you are using those versions and those particular browsers, this particular problem will be taken care. Limited access to operating system can prevent software hardware from being installed or accessed. Okay, so because it is accessed via the browser, so there is a limited access to the operating system, which is actually can create issues in certain web application. It depends on the what kind of a requirement a particular web application has. What is intranet? So here word is intranet. Now what is the intranet is, certain organizations, they want to have all the resources connected, but they don't want to give this particular access to the rest of the internet, or the to the public. So then they will have the intranet. So intranets, all the companies like IT companies, they will have the intranet. I would say like 90% of their resources they will be connected, and they will not be connected outside the outside their intranet. So it will not be connected to the internet. Wherever they require, maybe whichever departments they are facing the clients, they will have the connection to the internet. So most of the things will be under the intranet, and wherever it is required, firewall will be implemented so that it can connect to the external entities of internet. One of the more common terms you might encounter in web development is the term intranet, okay, which refers to the internet network that is local to an organization or business. So you can just think like it is a everything is same, like it is the similar to the internet, okay. Only thing is like it is limited to the particular organization, okay. It will all the resources of that organization will be connected. Intranet resources are often private, meaning that only employees have access to those resources. Thus, internet is a broader term that encompasses both private and public network resources. So, intranet is a part of a internet. So, intranet, all the resources are private, and certain resources are open to get connected with the internet. Intranets are typically protected from unauthorized external access via the security features such as firewalls or private IP ranges. Because intranets are private, search engines such as Google have limited or no access to content within the private intranet. So whenever we have a intranet, from internet we cannot access those resources. So those if we try to access those resources, they will be restricted using the firewall and other mechanisms. Due to this private nature, it is difficult to accurately gauge, for instance, how many web pages exist within intranets and what technologies are more common in them. So, because there is no access to the intranets, we cannot gauge any kind of information in those intranets. Okay, this is the example of intranet versus internet. So you can see here this particular patch or the block. Okay, this is a intranet. Okay, it is private corporate computing system, and they have some of the resources. You can see some pages are there, application pages are there, and they have some file servers are there. Okay, some financial and other enterprise systems are there, and all are connected to the web server. So their web application is basically running on the intranet. But if you see, some of the entities are connected through the firewall. For example, offsite workers might be able to access internal system. So you must have heard about like work from home for the IT companies. When they are working from home, they will have some kind of a virtual private network VPN, through which they will connect to their office network. So this is through the firewall it is possible to access. So this is how they will access. Some of the customers and corporate partners might be able to access internal system. So some of the internal system will be given access. And if you see, this is a public web system. In public web system, if you see this certain server is there, public can access public web systems. So whatever resources that are available or open for the public, those things can be accessed. So here green line shows that whichever is the public resources, they can be accessed from the internet, and public can't access internal computing system. So you can see here red line means other resources which are private, they cannot be accessed from the internet or the public web systems. Intranets and job market. Being aware of intranets is also important when we consider the job market and market usage of the different web technologies. So how intranets are built, how web applications are used, and what kind of a job market we have. And this is some idea it gives. In one focuses just on a public internet, it will appear that, for instance, PHP, MySQL, WordPress are absolutely dominant in their market share. So a lot of organizations, a lot of consulting firms, they use the PHP and the MySQL for the web application development. You are going to learn PHP completely as part of your syllabus, and MySQL, you will not learn about MySQL, but you will have one or two lab programs where you will see how you can connect from PHP to the MySQL, how you can connect to the database, how you can manipulate data, how you can retrieve the data. Those things you will learn. And apart from this, HTML5 is there, JavaScript is there, and CSS is there. That is dominant technologies, and lot of job opportunities are available in those technology skills. But when one adds in the private word of corporate intranets, other technologies such as ASP.NET. So these are other technologies using which we can develop the web application. For example, ASP.NET, Java Server Pages, JSP, SharePoint, Oracle, SAP, IBM WebSphere. Okay, these are the other important technologies. Static websites. One second, I will be back. Okay, what do you understand by static websites? Anybody? What is static website? Website, you can just think as a web application. Okay, sometimes we call it as a website, but web application is a broader meaning. What do you understand by the static website? Has fixed content, very correct. Okay, so almost just one example is like, I would say, we can just see the Wikipedia. Okay, so if you see Wikipedia, mostly if you search for any thing, okay, I would just say world wide web. Okay, so there is a one functionality, that is search functionality. Once I do this, mostly this content is static. Once you have this information, there is no other functionality provided here. So many of the organizations websites, where they create this static websites to provide information. So what is a static website? Where you have a just the content. Mostly it is a content, not functionality, like there is no provision to submit data, query, all those things will not be there. Those are called as a static website. In earliest days of the web, a webmaster would publish web pages and periodically update them. Some web pages using HTML and periodically update them. Another example is a blog. Okay, so blog pages, they are very like a static kind of a information. In early days, the skill needed to create website were very basic. What they wanted to know is the HTML, that is a markup language, hypertext markup language, and perhaps familiar with editing and creating images. That was pretty much for developing a web application. This type of a website is commonly referred to as a static website, that it contains only HTML pages that look identical for all the users at all times. This is an example of a static website. So this user is trying to access the a certain web application, vacation.html. Okay, when on the browser she types vacation.html, a request is sent to the server. Server receives files from its hard drive, so it will get that vacation.html. Along with that, there is a image, and server sends the HTML and later the image to the browser. So server will respond with the HTML page and whatever the resources required, in this case the image, and browser receives the HTML and the image, and browser displays the HTML document. That is how the user will be able to see the vacation.html web application. Dynamic websites, as opposed to the static one, dynamic websites will have a dynamic information based on the what type of a content you are giving. The display will change. Those are called as a dynamic websites, like for example e-commerce websites. Based on what you are doing, what operations you are doing, the pages will dynamically change, and it will be different for the different users. Static websites, it is the content is same for all the users. The minute they open the website, the same information will be shown to all the different users. In case of a dynamic websites, based on what these are interactive web applications, based on what activity user is doing, different pages will be displayed. Okay, those are called as a dynamic websites. Within a few years of the invention of the websites began to get more complicated, and as more and more sites began to use programs running on web servers to generate content dynamically. So this is the example of a dynamic website. Here, when we are talk about the dynamic websites, we will be using some kind of a scripting. Okay, because we have to run the server side scripts based on what users is requesting, what is based on his inputs, the response is different. So depending upon what kind of a input is given by the user, the response will be given in that particular fashion dynamically. So here, this particular user wants to see vacation.php. In this particular example, PHP has been used. Server recognizes that it must run a dynamic script that is on its hard drive. So vacation.php is the script that will be executed on the server by the web server, and whatever the HTML that is generated by the script, that HTML will be sent back to the browser, and browser displays whatever the HTML that is received by the server. So based on what kind of a input comes from the user, dynamically the script will dynamically generate the HTML, and this particular HTML is not same every time. So for example, in this vacation, this is displaying information about the particular places. Based on what place this particular has a user has requested, dynamically it will create that page, and it will send that as a response to the browser. Dynamic websites, these servers-based programs would read content from the databases, interfaces with existing enterprise computer systems, communicate with a financial institution, and then output HTML that would be sent back to the user's browser. So here they have given the examples. That particular server, web server, what kind of a request has been requested from the user, that might involve a interaction with the database, interaction with the other web server, interaction with the maybe a file system. So it depends on what applications you are creating, and according to that HTML will be created and it is sent back to the browser. This type of a website is called as a dynamic website. Web 2.0 and beyond. In mid 2000, Web 2.0 was created. Basically, that was the standard that was used for the Web 2.0. Web 2.0 referred to as an interactive experience where users would contribute and consume web content, thus creating a more user-driven web experience. With Web 2.0, there was a lot of interactive options that were given, so user can interact, and based on his interaction, the web content was displayed. Web.2 also referred to as a change in the paradigm how dynamic websites are created. Programming logic, which previously existed only on the server, began began migrated to the browser. Whatever competitions that were happening on the earlier on the server, some of those things were brought to the browser side. So those are the some changes we will see. This required learning JavaScript. JavaScript is the one example where we can use JavaScript to execute on the client side itself. When I say client, it's a browser. JavaScript can be executed on the client itself. One good example of that is what has been moved from the server side to the client side. Suppose you want to do certain kind of a validation. Okay, certain input has to be number only. If you don't have the client side scripting, what will happen is you will submit that form, it will go to the web server. In the web server, it will be checked whether it is a number or not. If it is not a number, it will send a page back and it will give that particular error. Instead of that, we can use the JavaScript on the client side and we can validate on the client side itself. Means a browser side itself, it will check whether it's a number or not without interacting with the server. There itself, the browser will inform that this particular input is not correct, it should be a number. The required learning of JavaScript, rather tricky programming language that runs in a browser. So I told you JavaScript, it will run on the browser, as well as mastering the rather difficult programming techniques involved in asynchronous communication. So those are the part of the Web 2.0. So there are certain internet protocols. How information flows when we do the request on the browser side, when we give the URL and when browser make a request, how it goes through the different protocols, how it reaches the server, how response is given back. To understand that, we will understand the different internet protocols. So that we will cover in the next class.